G'day lads, in this video I'll be using shots and possession data to predict the number of corners in a match. We'll use a method called linear regression on Excel, and at the end of the model we'll use our calculations to compile odds for the popular corner markets. If you want to download this model lads, make sure to click the first link in the description below and that'll take you to the Excel Lads Patreon page. So lads, in order to run a linear regression analysis and come up with an equation to predict a team's corner kicks based off of their possession and shot stats, we need existing data. So what I've done is I've gotten a 2022 to 23 EPL data set from the website Kaggle. That link is in the description below. And in here we have both teams, their corner kicks for that match, as well as the team's possession and shots. Then based off of this, we're going to run a regression analysis. If I go down to the last row in the data set, Southampton versus Liverpool was the last match of the season. Palace versus Arsenal was the first. Now, if you go up into the data tab and then into the icon data analysis, make sure this is enabled. If you haven't done that, make sure you do it because we need to run a regression analysis. Press OK. Now, with this regression, we're going to predict the home corner kicks. So our Y range will be D1 to D381. That's a column with the home corner kicks. Now the X range are the predictors for the home corner kicks. In this model, we're using possession and shot stats for a team to predict their corner kicks. So the X range will be E1 to F381. We're going to produce a new worksheet and title it Home Regression. And I like to leave residuals and line fit plots on. When you press OK, a new worksheet will be created called Home Regression, and then the significance F in cell F12 should be below 0.05. That means the model is valid, and the numbers we're interested in is B17, B18 and B19. That'll serve as the coefficients in our equation predicting the corner kicks for the home side in any matchup we produce. So now we're going to do the same thing and make a different equation for the away side corner kicks. So go into data analysis again, select regression. We're changing the Y range, what we're predicting, to the G column, G1 to 381 away corner kicks, and then the X range, the predictors are from H1 to I381 in this data set. The new worksheet will be called away regression this time, and when I press OK, we'll get exactly the same setup. The significance F is low again, so it's a valid model. And we have the three coefficients in B17 through to B19 that we need in order to create that equation in predicting the away side corner kicks. And now lads, we've got our model for predicting home and away corner kicks in any matchup we choose. We just need the inputs for each team, and that'll be a team's shots per game as well as average possession. So make a new worksheet, title it Team Stats. In cell A1, put the text Teams. In cell B1, put the text Shots per game. And then in C1, average possession. Once you've done that, collect every single team in the league for that season, their shots per game, as well as their average possession up until that point in the season. I'm going to do this without showing it in the video, and I'm going to pull it in using a Power Query that pulls the results into Excel automatically. And here it is. So I've got all 20 teams in the league, Arsenal through to Wolves, and their shots per game as well as their average possession. These will be inputs into our linear regression equation. And if I go into the shooting stats worksheet, all I've gotten are stats from the website FB Reference or Football Reference. That link is in the description below, and I've done the same thing for the squad possession data set that is on their website. So check that out lads, the link is in the description below for those FB Reference stats. Now the next step lads is to create our results worksheet where we're going to estimate a team's expected corners based on our equation for the home and away corners, as well as come up with odds for every single corner market. So we're going to merge and center the cells A1 to C2, write the text home team in there, and then from D1 to J2, merge and center those cells. In here, we want to create a drop-down list to select our home team. So what you're going to do is select the cell, go into the data tab. In data, there should be an icon called data validation. Click on that, a pop-up window will appear. Allow a list, and our source will be equals, and then the list of teams in the team stats worksheet. So that'll be team stats A2 to A21. Press OK on that. And then in the top right hand corner of the cell, there'll be a box there. Select that and we can pick Tottenham as our home team. Now, the last part of the header for the results worksheet is merge and centering K1 to L2. In here, I'm going to have Tottenham's expected number of corners for the match. We won't calculate that just yet. Highlight this range here, add in all borders. Now copy and paste A1 to L2 into cell A4, where we're going to change this text to away team. And then of course we'll select a different away team and I'll pick Everton. Now what we're going to do is for cells K1 and K4 come up with the expected number of corners for the home and away team. And to do that for the home team, we need to use the linear equation we came up with in the home regression worksheet. The formula is equals home regression B17, that's the intercept, plus the coefficient for the home possession in cell B18 multiplied by, well, the expected possession for the home team, Tottenham, in their game versus Everton. And the formula for that is open bracket 100 times open bracket VLOOKUP. We're searching up Tottenham in cell D1 of the results worksheet. So if I go back into results and select D1, and we're looking that up in the array of team stats A2 to C21. So this data set here, we can absolute reference that if we want, but it's not necessary. And the column we want to return is 3, or the average possession column for Tottenham. So comma, we want an exact match, so type in false, close the bracket. Now Tottenham's possession is going to be divided by Everton plus Tottenham's average possession to get Tottenham's expected possession for that match. So what we're going to do is divide by open bracket. Now we're going to copy and paste Tottenham's possession in, which is the formula we just built, plus, and then we're going to make a new VLOOKUP formula to return Everton's average possession throughout the year. So that's VLOOKUP open bracket, and this time we're looking up D4, which is the drop-down list for the away side, comma, the array is A2 to C21 in the team stats worksheet. We're returning the third column and our range lookup is false. Close the bracket there 4 times, so close bracket, and then 2 more. And lads, the last part of this linear equation is adding the home shot coefficient in cell B19 of the home regression worksheet, and then multiplying this by Tottenham, or the home side's average shots. So to find that, we're multiplying B19 by a VLOOKUP function. VLOOKUP open bracket, we're looking up D1, or the home side. Our table array is A2 to C21 in the team stats worksheet. We're returning column 2 in that array, or shots per game, and then our range lookup is false because we want an exact match. Close the bracket, press enter, and then we get Tottenham's expected corners for that match, and it's 6.71. I'll reduce this to 2 decimal places. And then now we have to do the same thing for Everton, or the away side, and that's really, really easy. All I'm going to do is copy the formula in K1 and then paste it in cell K4 for Everton. But I'm going to make a couple changes. So instead of home regression, we're going to replace home with away, because we've got a separate equation in the away regression worksheet. And then as well, every time I see a D1, replace that with D4, because instead of searching up the home team, we're finding the expected corners for the away team. And as a result, anytime you see a D4, change that back to a D1. So you're just swapping D1 and D4, as well as swapping home regression with away regression. That's the last one. Change that D1 to D4, press enter. And in this matchup, Everton has an expected corners figure of 5.04. And so we can play around with these two teams now. I'll select Burnley as the home side, and you can see the corners change for both teams when the matchup changes. And this is all based on their average shots and possession per match in accordance with the linear regression equation. Now lads, we're going to fill out the rest of the worksheet by creating odds for all the popular corner markets. So merge and center cells A8 to J8. Here I'm going to put the header corners, and then in B9 through to D9, put the headings over, exactly, and under. After that, put the number 10 in cell A10. And now in this part of the model, I'm going to find the odds of the number of corners in the match being over, exactly, and under a threshold in cell A10. We put that threshold as 10. And in this video, lads, I'll be using decimal odds to find out the decimal odds of an event. Just divide 1 by the probability of that event happening. To find the over 10 corners odds, the formula is going to be E equals 1 divided by, open bracket, 1 minus Poisson distribution, Poisson.dist function, open bracket, our X is going to be cell A10, absolute reference to the column. Our mean is going to be the home plus away expected corners, so K1 plus K4, absolute reference both of those, and the cumulative is going to be true. Close the bracket twice, press enter, and we get 2.1. When we change the formatting to accounting, we get odds of $2.11. And to just prove my point about the decimal odds being 1 divided by the probability of that event occurring, we can always get rid of the 1 divided by, press enter, and then changing that to a percentage, the probability of there being over 10 corners in a Brighton versus Fulham match is 47%. So I can change that back to odds now, and then do the nearly the same formula for the exactly 10 corners market, except that this time it's going to be 1 divided by, open bracket, Poisson dysfunction. The X is going to be A10. The mean is still the home plus away expected corners, K1 plus K4. But except this time, the cumulative of the Poisson distribution function is going to be false because we want to return the probability of exactly 10 corners occurring. And the model says the odds for this should be $8.08. Now for the under 10 corners market, we're going to use the formula equals 1 divided by Poisson.dist function, open bracket. This time our X is going to be A10 minus 1, as in this probability we want to return the sum of the probabilities of Brighton and Fulham getting 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9 corners, so that under 10 market. Then the mean is going to be K1 plus K4, cumulative is true, 2 closing brackets, convert to odds, and then we got $2.49 for that. Now select cells A8 to J10, copy the formatting and paste the formatting into cell A13, where we're going to find the odds for a new market called alternative corners. And this is the same thing as above, except we'll do it for corners 5 through to 17. So put 5 in cell A15, 6 in A16, and then we're going to drag that down to cell A27. Once you've done that, lads, we don't need to write any new formulas for the over exactly and under 5 corners. We can just copy and paste cells B10 through to D10 above, and because we have an absolute reference to the row, it'll update for 5 corners, and then when I drag that formula down to row 27, it'll do everything from 5, 6 through to 17. Now, lads, our next market is the two-way corners, so copy and paste the formatting of rows 8 through to 10 into cell A30. Write the header corners two-way, and in cell A32 we're going to put a threshold. Instead of it being a whole number like it was above, we're going to do a decimal of 10.5 so that there's only 2 outcomes. The total number of corners in the match will be over or under 10.5. Now, to find the odds and consequently the probability of there being over 10.5 corners, we're just copy and pasting B15 into B32. And then now to work out the under market, we're going to use the Poisson distribution formula, 1 divided by, open bracket, Poisson.dist. Now this time, instead of the X being 10.5 minus 1, it's just going to be 10.5 because the Poisson distribution will pick up 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10. And the mean will be K1 plus K4, the combination of Brighton and Fulham's corners in the match. True for the cumulative, close the brackets twice, and then we get $1.90 for the under market. Now our next market will be the corner match market, and this operates sort of like a normal game market in that it's Brighton versus Fulham, but instead of there being a win-loss draw on the basis of goals, it's going to be on the basis of corners awarded to that team. So put the title corner match market. And then so we have three outcomes. Either the home team, in this case Brighton, wins on corners. They score more corners than Fulham. So we put equals D1 into cell A35. In A36, draw. And then for the third outcome, equals D4, in that Fulham, or the away side, gets more corners than Brighton. Now we need to use the Poisson distribution formula to calculate this. So create a new worksheet called Poisson calculations, and then merge and center the cells from A1 to H1, put the title Poisson distribution, and in here we're going to figure out Brighton's probability of beating Fulham, scoring more corners than them, and at the same time Fulham's probability of scoring more than Brighton. And then once we've worked those two out, 1 minus the probability of Brighton winning minus the probability of Fulham winning will equal the probability of a draw. So in A3, put the text corners. Now in A4, we're just going to list corners 0 through to 25. You can always expand this, but it's pretty unlikely that a single team will score more than 25 corners in a single match. Now in cell B3, put the formula equals, scroll up to the results worksheet D1, and this will just list Brighton, the home team. Put the symbol and, speech mark, space, corners, close the speech mark. So this will create the text Brighton corners. If I change the home team to say Tottenham, it will come up as Tottenham corners. The formula for B4 under that is equals Poisson distribution. A4 is the X, absolute reference to the column only, because we want to drag it down. The mean will be the expected number of corners for the home team in K1 of the results worksheet. And the cumulative is false because we want to work out the probability of Brighton scoring exactly 0 corners in the match. Drag that down, put the percentage to 2 decimal places, and then we see Brighton's probability of scoring 0 through to 25 corners in this match. So we've got to do the same thing for the away team now. That's Fulham, so equals results D4 and speech mark, space, corners. The benefit of doing it like this is when you change the home and away team in the results worksheet, B3 and C3 will update accordingly. So in C4, same function, Poisson distribution, A4 for the X value, mean is the expected number of corners for the away side, and false for the cumulative. Close the bracket, we've got Fulham's probability of scoring 0 corners in the match against Brighton, that's 1.53%, and then drag that down to row 29. And now we've got each team's probability of scoring 0 through to 25 corners in the match. We can now work out Brighton's probability of scoring more corners than Fulham and vice versa. So in cell E3, put the formula equals results D1 and speech mark, space, win percentage. Close the speech mark, that'll get the text Brighton win percentage. And below that, we're going to work out in E4, what's the probability of Brighton scoring more corners than Fulham when they score 1 corner in the match. So that formula is equal B5 multiplied by sum, open bracket, C4, absolute reference both the column and the row, so that when I drag it down, it'll stay fixed to C4. Close the bracket, press enter. And so Brighton's probability of scoring more corners than Fulham is 0.02% when they score 1 corner in the match. So if I drag it down to row 29, I get all these probabilities, the sum of which is the probability Brighton will be awarded more corners than Fulham. So I can do the same thing in column F. In F3, it's going to be equals results D4, the away side, and speech mark win percentage. So that's Fulham win percentage. And then down here, I'll do the same thing, but just switch the columns. So it's going to be C5 multiplied by the sum, open bracket, of B4 to B4. Fix the first B4 using those dollar signs. So I put this to 2 decimal places and then drag down to row 29. And once you've done this, lads, we've got all the information we need, so you can go back into the results worksheet and calculate Brighton's probability and consequently their odds of beating Fulham on corners. So if I go back to cell B35, the formula is going to be equals 1 divided by, because we're finding odds, and then it's just going to be the sum of Brighton's probabilities in column E. So E4 to E29 of the Poisson calculations worksheet. Press enter on that, and we get odds of $1.45 to 2 decimal places using the accounting formatting. We can also do the same thing for cell B37, the away side, 1 divided by the sum of, in Poisson calculations, the F column, F4 to F29. And these probabilities will change depending on the teams and their expected corners as selected above in the results worksheet. And to calculate the odds of a draw is really easy. All it is 1 divided by, then in brackets, 1 minus the sum of E4 to F29 in the Poisson calculations worksheet. That's because the probability of a draw is 100% minus the probability of a home side win minus the probability of an away side win. So now we've got the 3 odds for the 3 events in the corner match market, and if I scroll up to the top of the results worksheet and I change the away side to Liverpool, for example, the expected corners will change, and as a result the corner match marker will also change, so Liverpool now become slight favourites. The last market we'll do is the first 10 minutes, how many corners are scored by or awarded to both sides in the first 10 minutes of the match. So copy and paste the formatting of rows 30 to 32 into A40, and then I'll put the title first 10 minutes in here. It's going to be the same thing as the two-way corner market, except that the threshold will be lower. We'll put the threshold in A42 as 0.5. And by the way, lads, you're able to change this. It's just that most commonly on sportsbooks at 0.5. The only change we'll make after copying and pasting B32 into B42 is dividing the mean by 9, because instead of playing out 90 minutes, the two teams are only playing out 10. So 90 over 10 is 9. We'll divide the mean by 9 in both the over and under markets. So just put K1 plus K4 in brackets and then divide by 9, and then we get the relevant odds for the corners won in the first 10 minutes of the match by both teams. Now play around with the matchup at the top of the results worksheet. For this next match I'll put Nottingham Forest as the away team and perhaps Manchester United as the home team, and make sure that when the expected number of corners for each team in K1 and K4 change, so do your odds below. That's the end of the model, lads. Thanks for watching. Make sure you click the first link in the description below to check out the more in-depth explanation of this linear regression model on the Excel Lads Patreon.